7 devastating trucker tales from the Appalachian shadows, never told nightmare encounters. The old road twisted like a serpent, winding through the thick fog that clung to the Appalachian mountains. The air was heavy, thick with an unspeakable dread, as if the very trees were whispering secrets of what had been lost in the dark. Truckers who dared to brave this route often came back with tales so chilling that they sent shivers down the spine of even the toughest of drivers. Just last fall, a hazy moon hung low, illuminating an old, abandoned gas station at the roadside, its sign flickering like a dying firefly. It was there that Danny, a seasoned truck driver, saw something that would haunt him forever. A figure, pale and thin, stood at the edge of the lot, arms outstretched, as if beckoning him to join it in the shadows. Danny could feel his heart thudding in his chest, the tightness of fear wrapping around him like a vice. He slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop, but the figure just gone. As he got out for a better look, the wind howled, chilling him to the bone. It wasn't just a spooky figure, it was the eerie quiet that gnawed at him. No crickets chirping, no rustle of leaves, just an unsettling silence that made his stomach twist. His world shrunk to a tight knot of dread. Moments later, whispers echoed through the trees, words he couldn't quite make out, but he could feel them crawling under his skin. In the days that followed, Danny would hear from other truckers a ghostly hitchhiker who smiled too wide, an old woman with hollow eyes asking for rides deep into the hills at dusk, and shadows darting just out of sight. Each story hung like smoke in the air, twisting the minds of men who could usually dismiss such nonsense. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With the sun dipping below the jagged peaks, the tension thickened. What lay ahead for Danny was unknown, something unseen. Shadows danced along the edges of his mind, twisting the very fabric of reality. Would he be the next to join the ghostly tales whispered among the weary? What would he find as he continued down that haunted stretch of asphalt? The road ahead promised only the familiar sound of his engine, and perhaps a nightmare lingered just beyond the headlights. The engine's rumble was a constant beat, a steady drum through the growing darkness. Danny forced himself to focus, glancing at the dashboard as the needle hovered over the speed limit. He had miles to go, and every second spent on this stretch of road felt like an eternity. Glancing into the rearview mirror, the emptiness of the road behind him mirrored the unease lodged in his gut. Just then, a flicker of movement caught his eye. He squinted through the murky veil of fog that seeped into his cab, trying to understand what stirred at the edge of his vision. There it was again, a shadow darting into the trees, quick as a whisper. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the creeping paranoia. It was just the remnants of fear playing tricks on him. But then came the first haunting cry. A sound sharp and high, almost human but twisted. It ripped through the silence like shattering glass, making Danny's heart stall for a moment. It was a sound with unholy echoes, and it called him. A blend of terror and fatalistic curiosity pushed him to slow down, almost involuntarily. As he crept along, the shadows deepened. The moon had tucked itself away, ceding the night to utter blackness, and he could barely make out the outlines of the trees. They loomed like sentinels whispering secrets that only they understood. Danny gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the tree line, stumbling into the pale beam of his headlights. Danny's breath caught in his throat. It was a woman, the old woman from the stories. Her hair was a wild mess of gray, and her eyes seemed to absorb all light, leaving behind unfathomable voids. She stood there, arms dangling, mouth slack, a grotesque semblance of a smile stretching unnaturally wide across her face. "Help me," she croaked, her voice dripping with despair. "The hills they have." The words hung heavy in the air, threatening to suffocate him. He felt a chilling blast of wind shudder through the cab, and fear blossomed into panic. What was it about this road that twisted the very essence of those who walked or drove on it? The urge to press the gas overwhelmed him, but something held him back. Maybe it was the way her eyes seemed to bore into his soul, recognizing his hesitance, feeding on it. "What do you need?" he asked, his voice trembling despite himself. The hollow eyes widened, shining like pale marbles. "You must turn back," she rasped, voice cracking like ice glass. "They're coming for you." Just as he was about to respond, the darkness behind her shifted. The shadows materialized into shapes, darting closer, forming a twisted row of figures that moved with unnatural fluidity. Danny's heart raced. He realized his foot had gone numb, still hovering above the brake but yearning for the accelerator. Without another thought, he punched the gas, sending his truck lurching forward. The headlights cut through the gloom, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked just out of sight, something hungry for his fear and the souls of those who had gone missing here long ago. As he pressed down on the pedal, a chilling scream echoed through the night, and he knew he was being chased. But the question loomed as he sped away into the uncertain blackness: who or what chased him now, and would he be fast enough to escape the fates of those who had come before? Danny's heart thudded against his ribcage like a hammer as he sped away from the horror that loomed behind him. The grotesque figures drifted into the fading light of his headlights, and he caught glimpses of distorted faces, features twisted into silent screams that pulled at the edges of his sanity. "Drive, just drive," he muttered to himself, gripping the steering wheel as the truck lurched over the uneven road. He felt the tires grip and release, a perilous dance with fate. What was it about this place that twisted reality into a nightmare? The shadows flickered in his peripheral vision, but he dared not look back. He focused on the road ahead, knowing that fleeing was his only choice, yet doubt gnawed at his insides. He could almost feel the weight of the figures pressing in on him, a desperate clawing at the edges of his mind where fear gnawed. The fog thickened, transforming the world outside into an impenetrable wall. It curled around the cab, wrapping the truck in an unsettling embrace. The headlight beams sliced through the mist, but fell short of illuminating the true danger lurking just beyond. Danny's breaths came heavy and fast, panic spreading like fire in his veins. And then the crying came again, a guttural wail that echoed through the suffocating fog, invading his thoughts. The voice of the woman pierced through the cacophony, her warning replaying in his mind: "Turn back. They're coming for you." But turning back wasn't an option. Not now. He couldn't afford to slow down. Every second felt precious, stretching into an eternity, as adrenaline coursed through him. The old stories of those who traveled these roads whispered back to him tales of drivers who vanished, swallowed by the hills, never to be seen again. Danny's eyes stung, and he blinked hard, trying to stay focused. The road twisted unexpectedly, and he wrestled with the steering wheel to keep it straight. But then what was that? A shadow dashed out from the woodland on his left, darting across the road like a wisp of smoke. He slammed on the brakes, tires screeching as the truck skidded sideways. He barely regained control before crashing off the road and into the underbrush, heart racing as he struggled to catch his breath. The engine sputtered, dying in the eerie silence that enveloped him. Panic surged anew. The darkness swallowed him whole. He glanced around, fingers trembling as he fumbled for the flashlight tucked away in the glove compartment. He flicked it on and illuminated the tiny cab, revealing the sweat beading on his forehead. But the quiet was unsettling. Had he lost them? Yet even as he dared to breathe, a low growl echoed nearby, mingling with the rustle of leaves. The dread tightened its grip, crushing his chest as he peered through the windshield. Nothing but darkness loomed outside, eyes staring back at him from the shadows. With a jolt, the sound of claws scraping against the metal of the truck sent chills cascading down his spine. A creature? Or was it one of them? Danny steadied himself. He couldn't stay here. He fumbled to restart the engine, praying it would roar back to life. If not, he'd have to face whatever hunted him, or worse, he'd become another story on this cursed road. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then loud, menacing footsteps surged closer. Would he even have the time to escape this time? A new decision loomed. Fight or flee? Danny's pulse raced as the shadows closed in. He had moments to act, but uncertainty gripped him tighter with each passing heartbeat. What choice would he make, and what darkness awaited him beyond the shadows? In the suffocating silence, Danny felt like the air had thickened, as if it could choke him. Every instinct screamed to run, yet the engine refused to cooperate. With shaking hands, he turned the key again. It coughed, emitted a desperate wheeze, then fell ominously silent. Come on, he pleaded, forcing the words through clenched teeth. The growling had stopped, replaced by an eerie stillness. It was worse than the threat of those figures. It was the unknown, the darkness that crept in and wrapped around him like a vice. He dared a quick glance through the windshield. The fog swirled in and out of view, the trees shifting beyond it, like lurking silhouettes ready to pounce. His heart raced, and with each second that dragged on, he felt time twisting into something agonizing. Suddenly, a thump against the truck jolted him. Tremors shot through his body as he whipped his head toward the back window. Nothing visible. But the darkness seemed alive, pulsing with chaos that made his skin crawl. They hadn't left. He could feel it. Clenching his jaw, Danny forced the flashlight beam towards the woods. Shadows danced, playing tricks on his mind. He imagined faces hidden in the trees, watching him, judging him, waiting. Fear had him in its grip, turning his thoughts into a whirlwind of desperation. With trembling fingers, he reached for the gear shift, ready to abandon the truck if he had to. No way, I'm becoming a ghost here, he muttered, channeling the last remnants of his courage. But just then, a burst of movement caught his eye. It was too fast, too fluid and visible among the branches. He blinked, trying to adjust his focus. There! Something flickered at the edge. Was it one of the figures? Or a trap waiting to ensnare him? The flashlight's beam flickered, dulling and brightening. He swore under his breath, another failure at the worst possible time. Just stay calm, he whispered, though his voice wavered. The engine sputtered again, almost taunting him. Shadows hissed at his ears, whispering promises of despair. Is this it? He thought. Do I really end up here? Then he heard it. A voice soft, seductive, yet filled with the kind of malice that sank like lead into his chest. Help me, Danny, he froze. How did it know his name? Heart racing, he felt the insidious pull of that haunting tone. The image of the woman who had warned him flickered in his mind, but this voice was different, sweetened by a melody, yet corrupted by anguish. No, get out of here! He shouted, asserting his mind over the growing dread. But the voice lingered, a haunting echo that begged him to listen. It socked him with another wave of fear. Could it be a trap? He swiftly diverted the flashlight to the door, sensing movement again. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake the sensation. Something with long limbs emerged in abominable shape that crawled from the twilit woods, skin glistening with moisture. Danny's heart dropped, arms frozen in disbelief. The creature paused, lifted its head, and he felt like he was staring into the abyss. It was horrendous and beautiful in its horror. The space between them felt electrified, charged with tension as time stretched to its breaking point. Instinct kicked in. He shoved the gear into reverse, grinding it out, hoping to escape the nightmare that had come alive before him. There was a scream, human, twisted by agony, echoing from the darkness. But he wasn't ready to face what lay behind him. With a roar, the engine caught. He slammed the gas pedal, and the truck lurched forward, barreling into the mist. Not knowing where the road would lead, Danny's gut wrenched. Was he escaping one horror only to encounter another? He was back on the road, but the eyes from the woods, those terrible eyes, watched as he tore away into the dark. As the mist parted, he realized there was one last thing he hadn't accounted for. His next turn lay ahead, yet something else loomed just beyond, an unseen roadblock, waiting to claim him this time. What would it be? And would he have the strength to face it? The truck jerked violently as Danny gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white against the dark leather. Fog swallowed the headlights, wrapping them in a cloak of uncertainty. His heart thundered against his ribs, each beat echoing the urgency to escape this nightmare. But just as he thought he was gaining distance, something loomed ahead. a mass growing larger, darker, more menacing. The shadows pooled unnaturally in the middle of the road, blocking his path. Anxiety twisted in his stomach like a knot pulled too tight. "Holy hell," he gasped, slamming on the brakes. The tires squealed in protest, but he barely had time to register the sound before he skidded to a halt just feet from the ominous form that waited. A figure stood there, silhouetted against the haze. Long limbs twisted and distorted, pressing against the fabric of the night, almost as if it were wearing the shadows themselves. Danny's heart raced, the chill of fear creeping down his spine. "Get out, help me," the sultry voice cooed again, a sickly sweet invitation that twisted his insides. It was like honey laced with poison. "No!" he shouted, his voice raw. "You're not real!" He cursed himself for answering back, but the voice was too familiar, like a call from the past. The weight of it pressed down on him, suffocating him. The figure shifted, and for a horrifying moment, he caught a glimpse of a face not fully human, not entirely free of its monstrous shell. Her eyes met his, pools of darkness reflecting his terror, and he felt caught in her gaze, a moth trapped in a spider's web. "Danny," she sang, her voice winding around him like a serpent. "It's so cold, I need you." In that instant, something snapped inside him. Adrenaline surged, tearing through the paralysis. He slammed the gearshift into drive, eager to escape, not caring where he would end up. Kicking the gas, the truck lurched forward, tires splashing through the slick moisture pooling on the asphalt as he barreled toward the looming figure. But she didn't move. She remained rooted, a statue forged of despair. As Danny flew past her, a glimpse of her mouth twisted into a grin, sharp teeth glinting in the dim light, and for one fleeting moment, he felt the chill of death in his veins. "Run!" The whispers grew louder, the shadows conspired around him, dragging him back. "You can't escape." The road twisted and turned like a writhing serpent, and he fought desperately to maintain speed. Twisting his head left and right, he dared another glance in the rearview mirror. The silhouette had vanished, but still, the haunting melody of her voice echoed in his mind. Then, camouflaged within the mist, horror struck again. An ancient signpost jutted from the ground, weathered and cracked. "Dead Man's and Lover's Crossroads." The words screamed to him, tattooed into his memory. The last words he'd heard from the woman who had first warned him of this place. "No, no, no, no!" he shouted, panic rising again as he desperately searched for his bearings. He had heard urban legends of this haunted patch of road, where the spirits lingered after unfulfilled tragedies. Would he become one of them? The engine began to sputter, the fear intertwining with pain. Shadows crept in from the edges of his vision, and he could feel their cold tendrils reaching into his mind, pushing at his sanity. He needed to find a way out fast. With fleeting hopes left, he spotted a narrow dirt path branching off the road ahead. It was barely marked and barely visible in the thick mist, but any escape was better than the fate that seemed to entwine him like vines of the forest. He swerved sharply, the tires skimming the edge of the asphalt, and plunged into the mouth of the unknown. A shudder ran through the truck, crunching gravel beneath him, and he prayed for deliverance. Yet even in the darkness, something stirred, something that did not want him to escape. As the fog thickened, he remembered one chilling fact: the legends whispered of the last victim, still wandering these woods. Would he become the next ghost among the trees? The trees swallowed him whole, and the haunting melody returned, deeper and more sinister. This time, it wasn't a plea for help. It was a warning. The truck jolted as Danny hammered down on the accelerator. Grains of dirt and gravel flew up behind him, flinging themselves into the night like desperate souls trying to escape the abyss. The engine sputtered, still clinging to life, but the dread rising in his chest told him it wasn't just the vehicle that was fading. Twisted branches arched overhead, dark fingers reaching down through the fog. Shadows danced at the corners of his vision, slithering with anticipation. There was something alive inside this oppressive gloom, something watching him, hungry and eager. "Just keep driving," he muttered, voice cracking under the weight of his panic. He could almost feel the trees whispering secrets, their gnarled roots entangling him deeper into their web. They knew him, their spectral music echoed in the recesses of his mind, taunting him with half-formed memories of who he once was, With a surge of defiance, he yanked the steering wheel to the left to avoid a large oak that sprung up unexpectedly. The tires screeched again, and the truck bucked violently. He gritted his teeth, heart racing. The feeling of being pursued was palpable. "Not again!" he yelled, inhaling a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. This place was cursed, he thought, alive with the spirit of those who passed. He had heard countless tales from weary travelers, remnants of nightmares resurfacing in the dimly lit diner back home. Each story more chilling than the last, yet he had never imagined being part of one. The dim light flickered inside the cab, sputtering like his own resolve. He was cold now, ice creeping into his veins. The figure, the one from moments ago, an unbearable weight settled in his gut. What did she want? He shook his head, desperate to rid himself of her haunting presence. But suddenly, the truck lurched again as the sound of thumping surrounded him. He froze, eyes wide, as he navigated the dirt path lined with skeletal trees. The music returned, but this time, it swelled into a cacophony of voices sighing, crying, and pleading. Then came the laughter, sharp, playful, mocking. He peered through the windshield. A tendril of fog curled around the branches, coalescing into a wretched face. Not again. He squeezed his eyes shut, willing her away, but that only seemed to amplify her approach. "Danny, you forgot me." Her voice slithered into the air, a sultry caress that sent shivers cascading down his spine. "You have so much to pay for." Clenching his jaw, Danny slammed the wheel to the right, careening into a small clearing illuminated by the brief glow of moonlight cutting through the murk. But the brief glimpse of serenity was nothing more than an illusion. Through the fog, figures materialized, ghostly apparitions drifting, anchored to their own sorrows. "Turn back," one whispered, a mournful wail stealing the air. "We can help, it's not too late." But despite their offer, he felt the grip of despair tighten around his throat. The dusty ground crunched under the truck's weight as if warning him to flee, to leave this forsaken place behind. Sweat pooled along his brow, the pressure building in his chest robbing him of breath. "Get away from me!" he shouted, breathing heavily. He needed to outrun them, but the truck was losing power, the headlights flickering like a dying star. The engine sputtered again, rattling with a low growl as if it too was succumbing to the relentless grip of the abyss around him. Suddenly, a whistle pierced the night, sharp and without form. It reverberated through him, like a signal awakening buried memories. "Danny? Danny!" Someone he knew. The urgency of that voice ignited a spark of hope, but which direction was it coming from? The ghostly faces twisted with confusion, their eyes alight with a glimmer of recognition. Their hands reached out, inviting yet ominous, shadows shifting around him. Was it real? Could he trust what he saw and heard? Just as uncertainty wrapped around him, the whistle sounded again, closer this time, igniting a fire in his heart. He needed to break free, to follow it wherever it might lead. With a newfound determination, Danny gripped the steering wheel, ready to dive headfirst into the unknown. But the moment he began to turn, the ground beneath him quivered, and an icy grip clutched at his ankles. "Stay with us," they coaxed as the fog thickened, wrapping around the truck like a shroud. Would he succumb to the seductive pull of the shadows? Or would he find the strength to break away before it was too late? The answer lay just ahead, and it filled the air with an insidious whisper. The moment Danny's heart raced with new resolve, the grip around his ankles tightened, cold fingers latching onto his feet as if dragging him backward into the shadowy underworld. Panic surged, but he fought against it, eyes darting in every direction, seeking anyone that could help him escape this nightmarish web. "Danny! Follow my voice!" The whistle sounded again, breaking through the whispering shadows, clear and urgent. It was like a lifeline thrown into a tempest. He turned the wheel sharply, trying to navigate the truck away from the ghastly figures that loomed closer. The headlights flickered once more, barely illuminating the ethereal faces that twisted with anticipation, their mouths forming words he couldn't hear but felt in his bones, a chilling promise sealed in dread. But the fog thickened, swirling faster, as if it had developed a mind of its own. He could barely see the road now, each turn becoming a gamble against fate. The voice called to him again, a beacon against the oppressing gloom. "This way! Trust me. Desperation clawed at his throat. He slammed on the brakes and his body jerked forward violently as the truck skidded to a halt. Was he truly losing his mind? Had he fallen into some oblivion where the dead beckoned him to join them? His breath came fast, a ragged rhythm echoing the turmoil within. Danny! There it was again, like thunder, so close. I'm here! Mustering every ounce of courage he had left, he shoved the door open and leapt into the fog. The moment his feet hit the ground, the shadows shrieked a dissonant chorus of sorrow, quickly filling the air. The laughter morphed into wails, the darkness swirling closer like a storm. Each step he took felt as though he was walking through water, an unseen weight almost pulling him back, dragging at his legs with icy fingers. Danny! Over here! The voice grew increasingly frantic, cutting through the sound of the shadows like a knife. He turned, heart hammering against his ribcage, chasing the sound down what seemed like an endless path. The trees towered around him like sentinels, their bare branches scratching the air with unnatural haste. Suddenly, the figure of a woman emerged from the fog, her features obscured, yet somehow recognizable. Her eyes sparkled with intensity, pulling him closer, hurting him with hope. Is it really you? He called out, each word tasting like ash on his tongue. Could he trust her? This specter that had been pulling him through the depths of his darkest fear? Yes. It's me. The urgency of her reply sent ripples through the air, propelling him forward. He could see her face clearer now, illuminated by the moonlight breaking through the fog. It was Sarah, his sister, lost all those years ago in the very woods he now tread upon. Sarah! The joy and despair twisted together in his chest. What happened to you? Her expression shifted, innocence fading as shadows flickered across her face. You shouldn't have come here, Danny. You have to leave before it's too late. No! I can't just walk away. He felt an overwhelming surge of anger. You're here. I thought you were gone forever. The shadows want your soul, she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder, fear etched into her beautiful features. They crave the pain you carry. You need to confront it. Suddenly, the ground beneath him trembled violently, as if the earth itself was awakening. A low rumble echoed, shaking his very core, and the apparition spun wildly, their hollow cheeks turning pale with hunger. The air thickened as a ripple of unease surged through the crowd of spirits, confusion wrapping them tightly. Run, Danny! Sarah screeched, her hand reaching toward him as if to save him, but the shadows lunged forward. He hesitated, stuck in the tug-of-war between confronting the darkness and escaping it altogether, but when he saw the terror in her eyes, the final connection ripped through him. I won't leave you! He shouted defiantly, hands shaking. The choice was just about escaping. It was about facing the demons that bound them. As the shadows clawed, he took a step forward, ready to confront whatever truth awaited him in their depths. But before he could move further, a new figure emerged from the fog, a towering silhouette that seemed to embody all of his greatest fears. Could he finally confront those shadows? Or would they drag him into oblivion alongside Sarah? The chilling answer awaited, looming just beyond the veil of fog. Danny's breath hitched as the towering silhouette took shape, a grotesque figure formed from nightmares he thought he had buried. It was enormous, a twisted collection of limbs that seemed to stretch and warp in the moonlight. He couldn't see its face, but he felt its cold gaze piercing through him, reaching straight into his heart. The wails grew louder, an avalanche of sound that threatened to crush him. What are you? Danny gasped, voice trembling. Fear. The figure enveloped the word in a voice like grinding stone, deep and resonant. It twisted its form, revealing eyes like black holes, echoing shadows that seemed endless. The very air around him crackled, thick with a palpable dread. Fear? Danny felt a raw surge of defiance course through him. I won't be afraid. Not again. You carry it with you, boy, the shadow boomed, its presence shifting closer, earth trembling beneath its weight. The pain of loss, the guilt of survival. You think you can escape? You don't know me. Danny shouted, heart pounding, each beat reminding him of everything he had lost. He thought of Sarah, of the laughter shared, of the bond they once had. The memory ignited a spark of courage. The fog twisted and swirled, pulling at his consciousness. He glanced back at Sarah, her expression filled with urgency. "Danny, you have to decide. Face it, or be consumed." The specter stepped closer, and instinctively, Danny took a step back. "I'm not done yet. I'm here to help you, to rescue you from this." "Help? Rescue?" The figure let out a guttural laugh, echoing through the trees like the howling wind. "Can you rescue anyone when you can't even save yourself? You are lost, like the others." Suddenly, the ground cracked, and a chasm opened up, revealing glowing red eyes hidden in the depths. Danny felt the pull, a gravitational force drawing him toward the darkness below. Panic filled his chest, clawing its way up his throat, but he steadied himself. "He wouldn't fall, he couldn't. Get away from him!" Sarah screamed, lunging between Danny and the figure. Her silhouette shone like a beacon, but the shadows encroached on her, threatening to swallow her whole. "Sarah, no!" Danny reached out, but it was as if invisible chains bound him. The more he struggled, the more the shadows pressed against his body, whispering his deepest fears, dredging up the guilt he had buried. "You don't belong here. You didn't ask for this." The shadows tightened their grip on him, and for a moment, doubt pierced his resolve. What if he was too late? What if he couldn't save her? Wasn't he that just the kind of coward he had always been? A thunderous roar erupted as if the earth itself had grown tired of their confrontation. The trees creaked ominously. Danny felt the pull of despair threaten to uproot him. But then he saw it, a flicker in Sarah's eyes, a glimmer of hope fighting back against the suffocating darkness. "Fight it, Danny!" she shouted, and her voice became a blade, cutting through the panic. Those words fed his spirit, igniting an inner fire. "I will not lose you again!" Danny yelled, gathering all his strength. "You are my sister! I love you, and that love is stronger than any shadow." With a surge of raw emotion, he pushed back against the figure, feeling the tension of his past collide with the urgency of the moment. The swirling fog began to recede, and the shadows hissed, recoiling as if burned by his words. The chasm began to close, edges collapsing inward, as if the earth was rejecting the darkness. But as Danny and Sarah reached out for one another, the towering figure lunged forward with a vicious burst of energy, the weight of despair reasserting its dominance. Could they defy this monstrous embodiment of fear? Would their bond be enough to banish the shadows once and for all? The final confrontation loomed, promising either salvation or doom. The shadows writhed, pushing back like a tide, as the figure surged forward, its grotesque form merging darkness and despair. Danny's heart raced, a wild drumbeat pounding against his ribs. Fear wrapped around him like a wet blanket, but he couldn't let it win. He couldn't lose Sarah. "Hold on to me!" he shouted, lunging through the thick air, each stride a battle against the darkness that sought to ensnare him. But just as their fingers were about to meet, a deafening roar erupted. The air crackled, and the ground beneath them split open wider, the chasm alive with red, glowing eyes that flickered like dying stars. Danny's throat constricted. How was it possible that something so powerful existed, birthed from their deepest fears? "Danny!" Sarah cried, her voice straining under the weight of the shadows clawing at her. Danny reached for her, but the darkness twisted, stretching out tendrils that snared his wrists, tightening until he could barely breathe. "Your bond is weak," the figure growled, its voice a guttural storm. "You think love can save you? It only makes you vulnerable." A flash of memory cut through the shadows, a time when Danny and Sarah were tiny, racing through sun-drenched fields, laughter ringing like chimes in the breeze. It was a reminder of joy, a lifeline cast into the void. "No!" he roared back, his voice raw and defiant. "Our love is strong. Stronger than your lies." He twisted his arms, pulling violently against the bonds that held him. The darkness hissed, a thousand voices merging into one great chorus of doubt and despair. But he wouldn't be swayed. He had faced worse. Together. We're stronger together. He felt the warmth of her spirit, an ember glowing in the thickening darkness, urging him on. The bond they shared wrapped around him like a shield. See? The boy cannot survive without hope. The figure jeered, the laughter malicious and menacing. But it was crackling now. He could feel it, the bond igniting, a fierce flame pushing back against the cold. Danny! Sarah's voice broke through, desperation lacing her words. Listen! We are not alone! With a sudden clarity, Danny understood. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for every single soul lost to this specter of despair. The lives that had been shackled to this darkness. Together! He bellowed, slipping his hands from the shadow's grasp. He surged forward. We'll tear you apart! The figure recoiled, its form rippling as Danny pushed through the pain and the fear, reaching toward Sarah. Their minds connected, energy surging like a wild storm, bursting with the strength they had fought so hard to protect. As their fingers intertwined, a bright light erupted around them, radiant and mighty. The shadows screamed, thrashing wildly, trying to reclaim their grip, but Danny and Sarah stood firm. It felt like being electrified, the warmth spreading, consuming the darkness that sought to annihilate them. Feel the love! Danny shouted, every ounce of his being behind it. The light exploded, crashing against the figure, and with a deafening roar, its form began to splinter, shattering like glass. But just as victory seemed within reach, the cracks opened up, and Danny saw flashes, faces filled with grief, despair, and guilt. The shadows shrieked louder, drawing strength from those memories. The darkness was fighting back, clawing at them with renewed vigor. Danny, we need to unite them. Show them they're not alone, Sarah urged, her voice strong yet trembling. Right, he replied, heart pounding with urgency. Together, they shouted, as the light surged again, this time, tinged with the weight of every spirit it sought to save. But the shadows, more determined than ever, roared back. Would their combined love and light be enough? Or were they merely fueling an even darker nightmare? The figure grew larger, and as Danny and Sarah faced this terrifying retribution, the very ground beneath them began to shatter once more. The final confrontation loomed, darkened by uncertainty, as they fought against the darkness that was both fear and loss. Would they be consumed, or would they finally break free? Danny's heart pounded like a war drum, the echo resonating through his very soul. Fear was a living thing, wrapping around him in a suffocating embrace as he gripped Sarah's hand tighter. The shadows lunged, their monstrous forms writhing, seeking to consume them whole. But in this moment, they found strength in unity. Together! Danny shouted, eyes locked on Sarah's filled with determination and defiance. They both felt warmth radiating from their connection, a flickering ember that threatened to ignite into a blaze of hope. We can't let them win! With a surge of desperation, they focused on the faces of the lost souls around them, those trapped in torment, yearning for release. Memories washed over them, haunting yet potent, fueling the flame of courage within. Danny closed his eyes briefly, letting images of laughter, love, and warmth wash over him. Sarah's laughter in a sunlit field, their adventures chasing fireflies as children. These were the moments that mattered, fueling the belief in their hearts. Feel it, Sarah urged, her voice rising above the cacophony. All the love that's ever existed. We aren't alone. And with that conviction, they channeled their emotions. Danny focused on every laugh, every moment of joy shared between them, every hug, and every comforting word. The light surrounding them pulsed with their love, illuminating the darkness. For every soul, Danny roared, lifting their joined hands high. Sarah echoed his shout, for every soul lost to this darkness. The surge of light erupted, expanding, a glorious explosion of brilliance that pushed back the shadows. Danny let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding, his hand brushing against the cab, feeling the metallic texture beneath his fingertips. The shadows had retreated, the weight upon him now lighter. As they climbed inside, Danny felt a profound sense of gratitude swell within him. The monstrous figure, the shadows, and the darkness, they were all memories now, fading like the figures etched into the trees. Let us head home, Danny. Sarah smiled, and this time, it was not a ghostly specter but his sister. With a nod, he turned the ignition, the engine roaring to life, the sound reverberating with a sense of new beginnings. As they rolled onto the asphalt, the fog dissipated completely, revealing a beautiful night under a galaxy of stars. And as they drove away from the place of nightmares, Danny felt the embrace of warmth surrounding him. Freedom. Your journey with us doesn't end here. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us keep the midnight tales coming. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this mind-blowing ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. Your support is what keeps the stories alive.